This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the Team Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
See, very good. We have this unbelievably talented producer who knows how to give me the finger and
the signal. It's called the signal.
The signal.
I didn't even point at you today. I just went like ta-da.
It was like
like I did like a Vanna White kind of thing.
You don't look like Vanna White to me.
I know.
340. That's good because she's old.
Yes, she is.
340.
Like the crypt keeper.
But she's well preserved.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. You know what I really
as long
like?
as they don't get close.
You know what I really like about her? Her walk. She has got the best.
I think that's what got her the job.
I imagine.
I mean, you know that board is electronic and she doesn't really have to touch those
No
letters.
but that's got nothing to do with it.
But we all know who she is.
Yes, of course.
Hey, listen, what's the guy that runs the show? We don't know
Pat
his name.
Sajak.
Pat Sajak.
I know, but I'm just doing that. Only gave
He's old too.
know his name. 340-1590, 340-1590. Back in 2004, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, who's sitting here today. Greg Fasula, attorney, who is not sitting here today. And Joe Martek, financial advisor, got together and decided to start doing radio shows for maybe a month or so.
Well, we thought they'd be good like public service shows for a while.
And then 15 years later, we're not dead
We're still
yet.
doing it.
We're still doing it. And the concept was very simple. Each one of us had an area of expertise that the other did not have. So what we tried to do was help answer questions for people. And it's worked extremely well to the point that we've added Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart. During the Great Recession, we needed to have a realtor on that could tell people what was really going on, which brought us to Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, who was even more important because there was words out there called there was no mortgage money available, which was never true. And Mike very simply said, well, we're back to the old rules. You have to actually prove you can make the payment.
But from what I understand, Joe, some of the mortgage requirements have eased up a wee bit.
Yep.
And so, yes, I still think it's important as a taxpayer because, let's face it,
Yep. When all else
if
fails.
it collapses because nobody can make the payments, guess who gets to pick up the tab? You and me as taxpayers. So they should be able to show proof of income to pay the note.
Well, you know what happened is, let's just, and this was where they did have some problems. So here's this old couple living on Social Security, but got $1 million stashed away in some kind of savings. Well, that wasn't allowed to be counted as income because that was not guaranteed income. Well, today it is. And that was kind of stupid.
Well, but if you've got that much money socked away and you need to buy a house, can't you just buy the house?
Well, but some people don't want to because here comes the
Well,
thing.
then too bad you're not getting a loan.
well, and that's exactly what happened. Well, think about this. When interest rates were 2% and you're making 7 or 8 or 10% on your money, why would you spend your money and lose 5 or 6?
Because you need to live somewhere.
Well,
but the interest rates, when mortgage rates were 3-4%,
even 2s,
you weren't getting 10% on your money. All right.
Well,
you know as well as I do, the federal government has stepped up.
Well, I'm not taking in the bank.
And they have,
you never got, it's been a long time in the bank.
Absolutely, but the government has made money available to these lenders at almost zero interest to stimulate stuff. So the banks don't care about your money like they used to.
No. Well, when interest rates were extremely high during Carter, if you might remember, the concept was to slow the economy down.
That was
you
called
might remember
stagflation,
that
brother.
worked.
Yeah.
It stopped the economy.
It sure stopped mine.
Boy, stopped mine. That was the year I worked 7 days a week for a year and a half to stay alive.
Well, but you know what? You did. And we have a much softer, citizenry, let's call it that, who tend not to try to keep their head above water and say, well, I can't make it, so you guys have to sort of bail me out all the time. And that's just never been the American way. I remember my dad working 2 jobs when things got tough, and while I've never done that, I'd like to think I would if I had to.
Yeah.
Of course, you would do whatever you have to do.
I would.
And that doesn't mean rob a bank.
Well,
And
when you're self-employed,
you roll up your
like-
sleeves
like-
and you work hard.
Like
You
Dan
work.
and I, we were commission agents. You may not have worked 2 jobs, but you might have worked 16 hours a day.
Absolutely, brother.
I mean, that was what it was all about. You just had to do what you had to do to get by. 340-1590, 340-1590.
Well, where do you suppose these young people get those ideas? School?
Well, you know,
Very possible.
Are you
I
thinking
think so.
that there's some liberal teachers in
I think.
school?
Well,
Is that possible?
Yeah.
First of
I
all, we
think
got.
the grooming and the molding is happening in the schools. I mean,
But don't you think that as a responsible parent? So, you know, let's say in my house I profess a belief of Christ and I have certain conservative values. If I'm going to send my children out into that realm, I'm going to do the best I can to do the praying and the teaching and all the things I wanted to prepare them for when they go into that arena to be able to, you know, to resist it.
Dan.
But if you
yeah,
don't,
but the thing is, they go to school then, and their friends and their teachers are cooler than you, Dad.
If you
Dan.
don't do that and you say, "Oh, I can't believe the schools are doing this to my kids," and you've not been preemptive,
No,
you
I would
set
be.
yourself up.
I'd be the crazy
Dan.
homeschool,
I hear you over there, brother.
crazy homeschool mom.
Dan, are you paying attention?
I try to pay attention.
Here's the problem. You're using logic.
Yeah, but he's also basing
no.
what he knows as to when he put his
Well,
kids
guess
through
what
school.
I was going
That's
with.
exactly
really
right.
a lousy. I mean,
He's using him as an
Yeah.
example. And Dan, you pay attention. You were there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Nancy behind you with a club
Well,
making sure you were there.
I can tell you that the parents, and I'm going back, 15, 16 years ago, the parents that I saw at, open house, PTA, all these things for their kids were the same parents I saw in elementary school
Oh, yeah.
that I saw
Yeah.
in high school.
Yeah.
And the parents that I wish I saw,
Yeah.
I never saw.
Mm-hmm.
So
And you
if
hit
you're
it.
not involved with your parents' life, it's truly not the teacher's job.
Of course
And
it's
if
not.
you send your kids off to higher education where they're going to try to influence their thinking, their logical thinking, and you haven't prepared them, you're in for trouble.
You know what we need right now? We need Greg Fasula's son here now.
He would be a marvelous example.
he's a
of that.
logical young man.
Yes,
I
he
mean,
is.
I'll tell you, poor Greg. I bet you he can't win one argument in that house.
Nor should he.
Nor should he. We don't say Greg is a liberal, but he leans that way.
He says he's a moderate.
Yeah,
but
well,
but a
he-
moderate what? I haven't
Yeah,
figured
we
out.
haven't figured that out. But we had his son on the radio one day, and his son is a flaming conservative and a 16-year-old. Now he's 18, 19.
How did that happen between having a moderate father and school being so
I will tell
left?
you, because the kid was brilliant.
Yeah,
And the old man's an
yeah.
attorney. We know how they are.
Well, you know what? I think what it was is he was smart enough to do his own research and wasn't influenced by people
Yeah.
who he didn't give high weight to their opinion.
But you also know this, Dan. Now, forgive me. You cannot communicate with a liberal.
Well, you just have to be consistent.
Okay.
Consistent.
They still don't
Consistent.
communicate with you.
Eventually, I think they'll come around.
Wait a minute. Back to my subject. You cannot communicate with them. Are you playing attorney now? Eventually, maybe.
How can you? But you listen.
You got to keep beating the horse, is what you're saying.
And I don't want to go back to religion, but I'm going to. Let's suppose you have a certain religion and you believe in that strongly. And as what we say is, hey, you drop your seeds here and there, but it may not. You may not be the one who brings it to fruit. Somebody else may. Well, I would hold that same principle to be with political agenda. If I have someone who I care for, who I think is extremely liberal, and I am trying to do my best to show them the error of their ways and the illogical thinking that they have.
And how successful have you
well,
been at this?
What I'm hoping is that if I'm not successful, maybe someone else will help bring them into the fold. So that's all you can do, brother.
I get a kick out of this, of meeting people. And when you get somebody that is a flaming liberal, I don't care how well educated they are. I mean, Dan, forgive me, you and I try on occasion, but it's beating a dead horse. Well, excuse me, you're beating a live horse.
We're trying to give that dead horse CPR and get him up on his feet and get him fed and watered, and hopefully he'll realize that, hey, You know, there's a better way to be self-sufficient than relying on somebody else to make ends meet in your home.
772, that's the area code here, 340-1590. Do we have an 800 number?
It is 800 Oh boy, I don't
Is it
remember.
really doing
What?
it?
It's
No,
800
it's not-
866 or something. I don't know. I have to go look.
Thanks a lot.
We don't
Well,
use it though.
Do you have to use
Yeah.
800? You can call that 772 if you have a
If
cell
you have a
phone.
cell
Yeah, it
phone,
doesn't
it
matter
makes
anymore.
no
I know.
difference.
So I'm not sure. I mean,
Do you
we
remember
just
when
don't.
everything? I remember when long distance
Oh, yeah,
was
everybody, grandma.
like from Port St. Lucie. If I called to
Stewart.
Salerno,
Stewart.
Stewart.
Yeah.
It was
It's a
long
toll call.
distance.
Yeah, toll call.
Well, you know, you're using logic again. What I loved about the post office, system, if you mail a letter from Port St. Lucie to Stewart,
Goes to West Palm or Orlando first.
Yeah.
first it goes to Orlando,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it goes down to West Palm, then it comes back up again.
And it's still technically a Fort Pierce zip code.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
Is
don't
that
like
job security?
You know what? If you want to talk
You
about
have to go back to the
inefficiencies
beginning.
with the government, little
tough.
minor
that. Yeah,
things.
no, you have to go back to the way that it was set up in the beginning. That's all.
Well,
It's
I don't want it
just
to become
that's-
by horseback. It might be a little faster.
But it
sometimes.
is weird. I know
You
you're
can
gonna,
walk that letter quicker than you could
you're
have
going to
mailed it.
send a card to the neighbor across the street,
Yeah,
and it has to go to Palm Beach first.
of course.
So,
I want to say
Yeah.
hello to a gorgeous lady in Montana named Deborah, who's a new faithful listener. I hope that after
You
she
hope.
hears this show, she may never listen again. Hi, Deborah. Anyway, back in '04, we started
Get
doing
back
the
to what you were
shows,
saying 15
and,
minutes ago.
And literally, we have been very, very, very blessed, especially Dan and I. We also have a guest member who's not here today.
Isn't he on a cruise or something?
Yeah, Alan Love, retired prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, who's been probably the most consistent member of the group. with
I
the
hope
ex-
where he's cruising, the weather's better than it is
Than it
here.
is
Well,
here.
he's in
Yeah.
the Caribbean. It's good.
Okay.
It's
All
good.
right.
So he's having a great time down there. I'm telling you, and he's going on, I think, a total of 3 weeks or
Yeah, he's going on back, like he said, he's going on
back-to-back
back-to-back
cruises. He got lucky as all get out. The only advice I gave him is don't get off the boat.
Don't
Now,
get
you know
off
how
the boat.
speedy it is to take him.
No, not.
You may not get back
sail
in
without
time.
him.
I have seen that. I've seen people running down the dock
Yeah.
area as the boat was pulling away. Because as you know, Joe, the docking and port fees for these massive
yeah,
cruise
yeah.
ships is very, very expensive.
Well, they
So-
may have a boat coming in right behind it.
Well, when they say they're leaving,
They mean it.
I don't care if you're running; they're gone.
Wow.
So, insurance business. See, the concept of the group was there's different areas of expertise, and Dan and I, when we start talking about insurance, especially homeowners insurance, we went back to Hurricane Andrew that put 10, 12, 13 insurance companies out of business. But the good news was all those companies that were, quote, approved to do business, the word is admitted. In the state of Florida, the state had to pick up the
Well,
tab, which is good, and
What-
they did.
You make it sound like the state does it out of the goodness of their heart, and
Well,
that's
of
really
course
not.
they
They really don't.
Dan, when did that ever?
What it is every policy that's admitted from an admitted carrier, they pay a little fee towards this. In the unlikely event that somebody goes belly up, then there's available funds to do that. And there are some non-admitted companies, and they don't participate in that. Clients have to be aware of that, and
Right.
usually they make you sign a form that says, "Yeah, I'm aware of that." But most people don't read what
No.
they tell you to sign.
Well, admitted means not just homeowners insurance; it means every form of insurance.
It could be auto, it could be commercial,
Life,
you know,
health.
A lot of the commercial stuff that we do can sometimes go with not admitted paper.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's bad. We look at who the company is.
Sure.
If it's Lloyd's of London or some
Highest
large
rated company in the world.
they got more funding than the state probably does.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
look at that because what you're doing is what's considered maybe a non-Main Street type of business law. I don't know. Let's say you have an arcade or a bar in a bad area. Most admitted companies say, well, we really don't want that exposure.
No.
But Lloyd says, yeah, come on over here. We'll give you a price, and if you can live with that, we'll insure it.
That's what the whole game
Now,
plan
if a
is.
company is going under, wouldn't it only affect people who have claims?
That particular company, it affects those particular policy holders. All right, but the money eventually will come through the state. If it's a non-admitted carrier that goes belly up, once again, it's just those people that had claims, but you lose your premium.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's the
everyone's
irritating
shopping.
thing. Everybody has to go out shopping, and that's not it's not an easy thing to tell a client, hey, that company you bought, well, they've decided to go out of business because they're insolvent, and you
And
need
they
to,
thank you for your
and
premium,
you
by
need-
the way.
And you need to give me more money, and
Yeah.
now you've made an unhappy customer.
Yeah.
Well, the key thing is, though, too, usually it takes a catastrophe to put insurance companies out of business. You know, it's been many, many years, Dan, and you've been in the business longer and more attuned to it than I have. But when I first got into the insurance industry, that was back in the 60s, and the only companies that I heard that went out of business that caused major problems were frauds. And there weren't too many, but
No.
every once in a while there was a couple. But then almost every state tightened up their systems for regulating companies and made these companies become admitted carriers and made other companies all join into the system.
Well, you know, the state reviews the finances
Yep.
of these carriers. So the state may come in and say, hey, you know, you can't do business in the state
Right.
of Florida anymore because while you don't know it, you're broke.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so so you have to have reliability upon that. But I can remember many, many years ago, there was a large admitted company here in the state of Florida, did automobile insurance. The state gave them a fairly clean bill of health, and within 8 months they were broke. That's a big change in 8 months. So it's up to the agencies to sort of police themselves and to be aware. If we start calling companies and we never talk to anybody, nobody ever calls back, we start getting uneasy feelings, there's a good chance I'm going to drive over there. And I'm going to see it. They got one desk and one person, one little person trying to answer all this, and they're just trying to suck all the money
I
out.
think it might be a mailbox center.
Yeah, you might want to run. So, the agent's got some responsibility in that as well,
And the other side of the coin is, and when you deal with the highest rated companies, it just eliminates a lot of aggravation. And I'm not, my experience in the industry is I've never known one person that's lost a nickel. Now, I know there's people that have, but I've never met one. I've never heard of one. I hear people talk about it, but I've never ever met one because admitted carriers have the backup of these individual states.
Plus, Joe, the industry does not want that
No.
bad publicity.
Big time.
It's no different than, let's say, you had something in the securities industries. It seems to self-regulate itself,
Yeah.
so the bad press sort of doesn't get out there. It sort of makes sense.
Well, and that's what happens. If you listen to the disclaimer at the beginning of the show, and you'll hear it again at the end of the show, it's got to say FINRA and SIPC, which us that are securities representatives and licensed to do such have to have somebody behind us that's got the deep pockets that protects the consumer, and that's what it's all about.
And they're checking up on you guys too, aren't they?
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
You kidding me? I mean, they know which
Yeah.
side of the bed I sleep on. I mean, this business, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be regulated. It should be regulated. But the concept, there's always going to be thieves. Look at Bernie Madoff. I mean, he, RIA, Registered Investment Advisor.
But he wasn't regulated by anybody, was he?
Yes, he was.
Was he?
Supposedly.
Oh, yeah, but here's
okay.
what he did was, see, this is what people don't understand. So people say, hey, Joe, I want to give you, here's $100,000. Who do I make the check to?
Okay.
Cash.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
Joe Martek. No.
No.
Big mistake. You make it out to a company or a clearinghouse or a broker dealer. You never make it out to an individual. Now, Bernie was taking money hand over fist made out to him or his company, and that's against the rules, big time. And how he got away with it for as long as
For a
he
long
did,
time, Joe.
nobody knows. But there might have been people under the
No one knows.
under the umbrella that were kind of maybe getting paid off. You think that's possible, Dan?
I have
Oh,
heard
in
of
other
that.
words, everybody was making money until the investors stopped making money.
Yeah, and what happened is the Ponzi scheme caught up, and it seems like
Yeah.
it always does, and we
Sure.
hear about it constantly. But a crook's a crook. Crooks are going to find a way to be a crook no matter what you do. 340-1590, 340-1590. And it looks like Renee is on. Renee, it's
I
Joe
think so.
Martek. You're on the phone. You're on the radio.
Thank you, Joe. I have a quick question because I see the industry numbers as far as the housing market is concerned seems to be creeping up, and I was just curious to get an idea because, like in my neighborhood, is of course we all know the evolution of the early years of the 2007s and 6s, and then the bombshell. But right now, it seems to be creeping up, and I was just wondering if there's any statistics as to what from a realtor perspective, what the number seems to be on an appreciating basis on annually right now for housing.
You know,
in the
there,
sales.
you can actually look that up online quickly, even by state.
But Joe,
and
don't you
sometimes
think that
by region? But
remember
I know
the old saying, it's location, location, location.
Yeah, sure.
So I know some waterfront properties
Yeah.
that have gone up much, higher rates
percentage-wise,
percentage-wise than certain houses in more non-desirable areas.
But are they selling at those prices?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
they are.
I have to say
Yes,
that
they are.
like
Well, here's what happens.
signs are everywhere right now, all over this
But
county.
there always have been.
Yeah.
If you drive down Indian River Drive, my whole life,
They're always for sale.
everybody puts a sign up every year just to test the waters.
Yeah. See, and I Zillow. I look at Zillow. I
Yeah.
love it because.
But now
I
I've
can-
talked to some realtors who say Zillow is just a sort of an indication,
Yeah.
but don't get it wrong because it's not necessarily
But
accurate.
what it
But
does,
they are
it-
showing you listings and what the houses are listed
Oh, it's
for.
fine.
Now,
Sometimes,
whether or
yes,
not you're
some-
getting those.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what happens is, and the reality is this: what is sometimes online and the pictures and all are not always the truth. Can you imagine that happening?
Well, it
I've
is the
heard of it.
internet.
I've heard of that.
It is the internet.
But here's the bottom line: I don't care what anybody says. The market is strong, real
right
and-
now, because let's face it, while prices have increased,
Yep, big time,
interest rates have stayed pretty level.
very level.
I think a lot of the speculating as far as the guys looking to flip them,
Yep.
that's not necessarily totally behind us, but it's not like it used to be. And so I think there's some slow stability and upward creep, and it'll be there, I think, for a while.
And what happens is, if we use the basic rule of housing, and this is Joe Martek talking. I was a realtor. I was a broker. I was a developer years ago. Lost my shirt being in real estate. Thank you, Lord.
Still have
I
one.
know, but I bought a new shirt.
Yeah, he had to wait a while and get
Had
a
to
new
wait
one.
a while so I
Had to
could
wait a
afford a
while.
shirt. But one of the things that happens is no matter what you do, it's supply and demand. And when the economy is hot, usually the biggest things that are hot are real estate and automobiles. People are buying new cars and people are buying new
So do you
houses.
think that this terrible, awful, cold winter that we're having is going to be good for us next year? I think it will be.
Not only is it good for us, Florida is now the third most populated state in America.
No matter what happens.
No matter what. But then think about these poor people in the Northeast under the tax reform that now can't deduct.
For every neighbor that drops dead shoveling snow, 10 people move down here.
Well, I was just curious as far as the market condition because I know that realtors, there's a, when you put a house for sale, some of them a number of days in the market. So
Yeah,
there's always an average number of days in the market, and not going back to your inventory part. I was just wondering if the inventory is increasing or decreasing as a result of
I wish Victoria
You
Lloyd
know
was
what?
here.
The thing is, the logic here, though, is
It
it's
is-
Florida. It is the snowbird season, so
But it
it's
is-
increasing.
No,
I mean,
no,
Well, I will
no,
tell you-
but that's
Inventory?
not. No, inventory's
Here's what I will
down.
tell you.
Inventory's down.
The big builders
Everything's-
have been building for a while.
Yeah,
all
there you
right.
go.
So now, last week I'm running through Palm City, coming up through Becker, going through some back roads because I like to look
Building
around.
like crazy.
There's a lot of individual homes that are being built by smaller builders right now. I can't tell you if they're spec homes or if they've been pre-sold, but I know they're in the ground. So, there's a demand.
The key thing is this, and we got to use pure logic. When unemployment is low, the rates are low, and interest rates are low, people are going to buy houses. People, they qualify. Not everybody qualifies. When a young person comes along and is renting and paying $1,500 a month, and they can find out they can buy a new house for less than $1,500 a month.
But can they
But
qualify?
they have to qualify. So my thing is, if you get online, there is available inventory. All this information's available, and I wish Victoria was here and Remax of Stewart because she knows this stuff. But the market has slowed down a little bit, but every once in a while we get streaks.
Well, I'd be interested in knowing about the ghost inventory that all the lenders own on the houses that they repossessed during all that difficult time.
Seems to me.
Many of those lenders still have a big ghost
They
inventory.
have some, but not as much.
well, you can still, again, going back to Zillow, I'd love to look at everyone's houses. They will tell you if it's in foreclosure.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, and you still stumble
Well, yeah,
across
but what happens is
foreclosures.
banks, once they have foreclosed on it, that doesn't say foreclosure anymore. If it's in foreclosure, yes, that they will tell you that. But once a bank owns it, I mean, I've tried
The
to
other
buy.
thing with a
I've had to buy a couple houses from banks. Guess what? The bankers bought them.
Yeah, the
Somebody
bankers.
in
Yeah,
the bank because
yeah.
it was a deal and a
Yeah.
half.
Right.
What you see also is there's only one picture. There's a picture of the outside period. It
Yeah.
says foreclosure. There's the price, and it's
It's
the
what
bank.
it
The
is.
bank is selling it.
All it
You don't
amounts
get
to is
see inside.
Renee, when it comes to what's happening, the logic is pretty simple. But here comes another thing that happened during the Great Recession. When used houses became worth more than new houses, that's a bubble. It's a big problem. That's not here today. New houses still cost more than used houses.
Yeah. Well, it used to be that way, though. Like in 1990, when I built my house in Port St. Lucie, existing homes were higher priced than brand new.
Well, that was the case when I first moved into Port St. Lucie in '83, and that's why we built, because we could actually build a house
But see,
better.
if you remember back then, this became parts of the bubble when the recessions hit.
Right.
And don't
Understood.
forget, when you build, the city and the county want all these impact fees now.
But not in St. Lucie County. Martin County was always a lot
Oh,
higher.
it's off.
Always
the
has
chart.
been.
You
Always
may
has
have
been.
$30,000 in the ground before you do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate the input. I was just curious because, like Joe, you just mentioned the fact of the inventory, being down. Well,
Right.
that means from a demand factor, that's going to be, people, the realtors are looking for sale for listings.
Yeah,
Therefore,
yeah.
the price conditions is going to
Yeah.
go up.
See, I'm not
And they-
seeing
and they
that
ha-
when I
no,
look
it-
on Zillow. I mean, it seems
don't
like
look
this
on
entire
Zillow.
county's for sale.
Don't look on Zillow, because Zillow's going to show you. See, what you're using is what realtors hate.
But it says for sale.
But
So I can
what I'm
see.
trying to say is, though, realtors look at the total inventory
Right.
available, period. Now, if the total inventory is 100 and next month it's 90, well, guess what? Demand is going up and supply
Correct.
is going down.
Okay.
The prices are going up, and prices have been going up steadily now. Steadily.
Well,
for a good
definitely
while.
prices have been going up, but I see a lot for sale, and I'm not seeing.
See, you're not
sold.
you're not counting.
Well, I'm not a realtor.
Well, guess what?
I'm just a girl peeping in on people's houses.
You know, we used to, Renee. We
You're
used
a
we
stalker,
used,
that's
we,
what
we
you
used,
are.
we
I
used
go,
to,
oh, isn't the couch pretty in this house?
No, I like what you said, Joe, because that's what I was looking for, to see if that's the case, because then, of course, that's a price point, and that's going to go up
Yep,
if
yep.
the inventory goes down.
what does happen is interest rates are staying low, which is a miracle. I mean, you can get
Yep.
30-year financing at or below 5% if you qualify for it, which is, to me, is a flaming gift. You know, when you look at
It's almost free money.
almost. All right, my man. Thanks
Thank
for calling.
you so much.
340-1590, 340-1590. Hey, I want to bring up one of my more favorite subjects.
It's not you, is it?
Thank you, Dan. Paying attention. You're cute too. You know?
I know.
I know. For an old guy.
For an old guy.
You know, the only thing that's nice. Well, I'm not really. Your belly and my belly are running neck and neck.
Hey.
You look like you've lost 5 pounds.
I can lose 5 pounds in a day.
Right. What happens is you watch these commercials on TV, and they're for They don't say annuity contracts, but that's what they're selling. And they come up and they'll show guys making 6, 7, 8, 10, 12%. They're showing all kinds of numbers. And you got to be careful watching these numbers. The one I like the most, they have this big seminar with 100 people in there, and everybo's happy as all get out. Then a guy comes
Everyone
up.
getting together at Benvenuto's.
Yeah, Benvenuto's.
That
That's the one.
commercial, right?
And they're showing this guy comes up and he says, "I've had 7% interest credited." Now you know what credited means? Nobody does.
Oh, okay.
Bottom line is that doesn't mean you can have it.
Right,
That
right.
means
It's credited.
It's credited. It's showing.
You can see it, but you can't touch it.
You can see it, but you can't
Okay.
touch it. You got to be extremely careful. Extremely careful when you look at these quote index. Now, my compliance people say, number one, whenever I use the word annuity, I've got to say you need to know the claims paying ability of the company. So, like Dan and I, wearing our insurance hats, we like dealing with A and A plus rated companies because we just feel comfortable that no matter what, we're not going to have an aggravation.
Right, and from my side of the coin on the insurance, it's not just the rating; it's who does the reinsurance.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
too.
because what's happened now, Joe, is in the past, insurance companies would grow by having more reserves for
Yeah,
claims.
right.
Now, insurance companies seems to grow by buying more reinsurance, and so they don't have the cash paying ability to pay off these small claims if
Right.
a disaster hits. So I have to watch
You have to
all
watch that, too.
Same thing that you got to watch.
So what happens is I like dealing with these A plus superior rated companies solves the problem. But let me go back in again. Watch out, folks. Watch out. When you see commercials on TV or you see them in the newspaper or on the radio, and there's never a reference to securities offered through FINRA or SIPC, which is Securities insurance protection company, which means I've got $1 million worth of insurance for fraud. There is no protection. So now you're listening to people, and when I run a commercial, if I did, on TV or radio or whatever, my compliance people have to approve it before I can run it.
It's got to be pre-approved.
Pre-approved. So you're never going to see, whenever you see these big houses like Merrill Lynch or any one of them, it's all generalities. They never give you
That's
specifics because they can't.
Well, I mean, same thing on the insurance side. If I wanted to run an ad about a certain carrier, I have to present it. They're going to have to approve it. But many times what they have, Joe, they have pre-done ads.
Yeah.
That all you do is stick your phone number, your name to it. They're all happy with it.
And that works.
Well,
but
it does
but
work.
as long as you don't mention a specific insurance company, which you ever notice all these ones that are on the tube or they don't mention a specific company. They go into this whole concept. The key things that you have to be careful of when you hear the word index, what you have to be careful, very careful of, and they also call it crediting interest, and they will pay you according to the index. They will pay you interest according to the index. You're not in the market.
So if I'm a retired person and I'm looking for a way to subsidize my Social Security, and if I have a little pension or something, perhaps a credit won't pay my bills.
You got to be careful. How do you get your money back out?
Well, yeah, I guess if you can see it but not touch it, you'd have a problem paying those bills, wouldn't you?
Sometimes some of these companies say, we'll give you 12% the first day bonus.
As an incentive.
Try to collect it. How do I collect it?
Try to eat with that.
You got you might have to wait 20 years. Some of them have 12 and 14 and 18 and 20% penalties. There's all kinds of stuff that normally is not disclosed quickly.
So what if I didn't want to get involved with that? Because, from what you just said, sounds like it may be something that me personally, I probably wouldn't want. Is there something else you'd recommend?
Yeah, but let me finish that before I get done.
Not at that lunch seminar.
There's another
We're
word.
only selling one thing at that lunch seminar.
No, the reason it came up this morning, I had a client come to see me this morning before the radio show, and this is how it came up. But the other word that you have to watch for is CAP, C-A-P. Now, I have never, ever heard one person selling these things ever mention the, quote, cap.
Now, you know what cap means, but that means it's going to be capped.
Something on top of
It's
my
going to
head.
cap your earnings. This is the most you're going to get.
Yes. So you got to look very careful. One of the magic words to say, is there a cap? One. Two, is there liquidity? Meaning, can I take my money out? How much of the earnings can I get out at any time? If ever.
Now, Joe, sometimes don't they have each year you can take out an increased amount?
Point is this: some of them allow you to take money out, but then some of these contracts you don't share in any of the earnings as you
If
take
you
the
do
money
that.
out. Yeah. So you got to.
So you're taking your own money back out.
Yes.
So they're going to charge you.
That's crazy.
Well, and it is.
I could go to the bank.
Yeah, but not to defend it, but let's suppose I put my money in a CD, and the CD says, Dan, you got to have your money in here from point A to point B.
You can't. You have to
and
wait.
somewhere in between, I go, ooh, I need money. And
Then you shouldn't have put it in CD.
Well,
You'll
they'll
have a
give it
penalty.
back to me, and I'll have a penalty, but you
Okay.
need to be aware of that.
All you need to know is understand. So the magic words, when it says interest, like I had one fellow I went to see, he says, Joe, they told me I'm going to get 7%. I said, where does it say that? And he says, right here, 7% factor. Factor. Do you know what factor means?
No.
It means
No. See, all it is
It means my boyfriend's
it's a
a French
calculation.
I mean, I figured out the cap part, and I figured out what's the
cap
other one?
means-
Yeah.
Okay, so you put in this $100,000.
What's the
We're going to
factor?
give you $7,000 a year factor. Does that mean you're earning any money? No. That means they're going to guarantee you this income until your money's gone. Oh, isn't
So
that
again, they're giving me my money back. My money back.
You're giving
not
you your money
anything
back.
I earned.
Well, the key is this: are the earnings calculated? Then how are they added to your account? And then how can you get it out? Now, that getting it out is the monster thing. You got to be really careful. Now, caps. Here's the side that gets me. Whenever you're dealing with a fixed annuity contract or an index annuity, which are called fixed index, they add another word. Basically, the government says your money has to be primarily invested in the bond market. Bond market means 3-4%. Okay, if you're only going to earn 3 or 4%, no matter what the smoke and mirror says, the insurance company has to make a profit. So what's left? They can't pay you more than they've got. So you just have to be very, 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 very careful. Now, I've seen one person ever, personally, that it worked for, because it said if he didn't die and it lasted 15 or 20 years, they would set up a pension, and the concept of the pension was what he was looking for 15, 20 years down the road. So that worked. And literally, that's exactly what he wanted.
What happens to that investment if that person passes away?
Normally, they have a death benefit that
Okay.
will
Maybe
guarantee something. Give you back your money, or maybe
But you say something, not
oh, yeah.
all of it?
They will factor it.
It depends. It really, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
You have to be careful. It's just a situation that these things they're not regulated by the securities industry. They're not regulated by the SEC. They're insurance products, and each individual state has different rules. But I've never seen any. Well, Florida for sure. These ads don't have to be pre-approved unless you mention in an individual insurance company. And I've never seen one of these things on TV or any place that mentions an insurance company. And Dan, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, absolutely. In fact, I just so you'll know, many times I'll have an insurance representative stop by my office.
Right.
And I'll say, hey, we have a radio show. Why don't you come be a guest speaker?
Yeah.
I've yet to have one say yes, because they all say, I got to talk to my, my managers.
People, yeah.
And as soon
And
as
they
they
go,
say,
no.
oh, we don't think you should do that.
Well,
And they
the
never
biggest
come.
problem is they can't mention their company. They can talk just like we're talking now, generalities, but you can't talk a specific company without the approval of that specific company. And then when you're on a radio or TV, let me tell you something. This is a major problem, because they have to listen to my shows. And then if they don't like what I say, they have to then send it away to FINRA.
And on a bad day, we talk about everything but that, and then the last 2 minutes we
I
talk
tell you,
about
sometimes
yours.
my people in compliance really get upset. He goes, Joe, I listened to 9 of your shows. You didn't say one thing. And I said, well, and your point is, why do I have to listen to your
It was the
shows?
political season.
Political season.
But see how compliant you are?
Well,
That's
the key is, let me tell you, because they scare the bejesus out of you, and they do, because you have to walk the line when you're in the securities industry.
Well, Jill, I'm going to tell you this real quickly. Years ago, I did everything you do. And the compliance and the audit, and we never did anything wrong, and I sold such a small amount of it. It's like I go to myself, it's not worth the aggravation. I turned in the license and gave that book away.
Well, that's one of the reasons I don't do any insurance except annuities. I do securities and annuity contracts that are variable, but I don't do very little, even though I'm licensed to do health insurance and the rest of it. You can't be an expert on everything.
That's right.
And the compliance, in order to do all that stuff, it gets more and more difficult. Anyway, which leads me into the variable annuity. Now, first of all, when you hear the word variable, that means you can be in the market. You can be invested in various mutual funds, or they're not called mutual funds when they're in the contract. They're called funds. They look the same, they smell the same, but because it has the insurance company wrapped around it, they just use the word fund. They can be managed by the same exact companies, look and smell exactly the same, but I can't use that word. So we have what looks like a mutual fund, or an ETF, exchange-traded fund, or a bond fund. All of these things are very, very similar to what you can get without insurance. So why do I want insurance? Well, protection. So literally, the negatives of these annuity contracts is when the insurance company makes money. What a scary thought, huh?
Well, Joe, here's the way I look at it. If I'm younger, let's say 20 to 50.
Oh, yeah.
I can be in a fund perhaps that may not have as any guarantees, but I'm riding market cycles up and down as I get older. Once I get to a certain point, I'm looking more for income, not for growth.
And protection.
Absolutely.
Like I had a fella come in to see me a few months ago, and he said, last year I was worth $1.5 million. Now I'm only worth $1 million. And my broker says, well, give me some time, I'll get it back. And he says, I'm 80. How much time do you think I've got? So the key was this. What I'm supposed to do is wear the hat of the client and say, hey, if you're 20 or 30, you've got a long time. The annuity contract makes no sense because we got to pay an insurance company, because you can ride the roller coaster up and down because you've got time. But all of a sudden, and Dan hit the magic numbers, when you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, now you don't want to have to go back out to work. You don't want to lose your money because you put it in a bad investment. You want to know you're protected. So insurance company says this. Now, I'm not going to give you what everyone says. This is a generality. But the first thing they come up and say, and this is an example, you put in $100,000, we're going to have a death benefit that says no matter what, you die, you're going to get your money back. You won't get your money back because you'll be dead, but your beneficiaries will.
That's right.
Some of the insurance companies come up and say, not only will we give you your money back, but we'll have a factor in there of 5% per year, or the highest anniversary, or the highest quarterly anniversary.
Because dying was bad enough.
Dying was bad enough. So now your wife is happy if you die when the market's up, because it but when the market's down, your kids and your wife are unhappy if you're not insured. So
Keep them on life support.
there you go. Put them on life support until the market comes back up again. But the key is this. If you have insurance on it, it protects your family no matter what. So, and listen, we've all had recessions. We've seen big collapses in the market. That's not the right
But
date.
it's protecting your money. I mean, you're not going to lose your money then.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Number two, it says, okay, yeah, I like making money. Last year, not 18, but 17, if you were in the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100, you earned over 20%. So the insurance company does the same thing. You're up 20% for the year. Well, on each anniversary, some of these companies lock that number in if it goes up, and they say, okay, fine, depending on how old you are, we're going to guarantee you, we the insurance company, going to guarantee you a 5% income, or it could be 6% income for the rest of your life on that number. Now, market goes up, you go up, you also, it's your money. It's always your money. Are there penalties for taking it out? Yes. Here comes the way it works. Most of these companies, not all of them, but most of them or some of them say you can take out all your earnings whenever you want, or at least 10% a year without a penalty. So like 2 years ago, I had these people that were earning 20%. Some of them took out the whole 20%.
Because
I'm
the
back to
penalty
where
was less than
they
the
could
earnings.
take out all of the earnings,
Okay.
no penalty.
So it made sense.
So it made sense to do. I have one particular client. He got married, good-looking babe. I'm happy for him. He says, you know, Joe, we didn't take a honeymoon. How much can I take out? And I said, you can take out $13,000. He said, how fast can I get it? And his money was still protected that he put in. So, hallelujah, he was just the happiest clam in the world. So what happens is the insurance side's, hey, we're there to protect you in case you die on the wrong day. We're not protecting you. We're going to protect your family. And then we're here to protect you in case you don't die and the market collapses. We're going to guarantee you income for life on that, so no matter how long you live. And then once a year, if the market goes higher to the last step up, we'll step it up again, but it never goes down. So I love this concept, but people, what happens, Dan, and I think you know this, when the market's going straight up, nobody likes insurance. When the market's going straight down, everybody loves insurance because they're protected. So the concept of this is, and Dan said it earlier, if you're under 50, the odds are good we're not going to talk about this because you've got time to ride the roller coaster of the market. On the other hand, I've had people in their 40s say, Joe, I don't want risk. I want to be able to sleep no matter what. Okay, fine. You
Or
can
they
do
could
it.
take part of their portfolio and do what you're suggesting, and maybe another part and something else that you can offer.
yeah.
And as they get older, maybe transfer more and more of that portion into the more guaranteed fund.
Invariably, I have people say, no risk, no risk, no risk. How can I make sure I'm protected? And I said, okay, might be something that'll work for you. Let's go through it. Well, then they come up and say, well, what have you got that might pay a little more?
So you can put part of the portfolio.
And that's what you do. There are other things. One of the things that I'm still just having a wonderful time with, real estate investment trusts that are liquid, meaning I can buy it today, sell it tomorrow.
Now, what is that? Is that where they buy a big building and they rent it and I get a piece of the rent?
That's
or?
one way. The ones that I'm dealing with are mortgages, though, rather than physical real estate. They're mortgages. Now, why do I like them? Well, because the mortgages, under most circumstances, are floating, meaning they're not a fixed interest rate. So as the interest rates go up and down, they go up and down with it, but they still get to take their fees out. And the rule of these real estate investment trusts is they have to pay out 90% of their profits every 3 months. So most of them are paying 10 to 12% interest.
Do you participate in, let's say, the depreciation tax aspect of that real estate trust?
No.
No.
What you have is the dividend or interest income, period. So there are some other ones that may, but these are what's called liquid, meaning they trade on a stock exchange, and you can buy them today. You can buy them, sell them the same
So I
day.
don't have to find a buyer.
No, they are traded on the only ones I deal with traded on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ because I want liquidity. I want my clients to be able to get out. Oh, I want to be able to get out.
Absolutely.
Now, here's where these things can become fun, Dan, and this has become really a lot of fun for me. What happens when something pays 10, 12% interest, everybody loves that.
Right.
Now, what happens is, and this is like being Catholic, don't ask questions. You can own some of these things for 2 weeks and collect 3 months' worth of interest. Does that make sense? No. But it's the rules. Don't ask questions. It's just the way the rules are.
Do you know when this interest is going to be paid?
Absolutely.
So let's suppose I wanted to make an investment with you on something like that, and you said, well, Dan, this is coming due in
Let's say
April.
April 1st. Yeah.
All right, so that's a good April Fool's joke. All right, so let's do April 1st. I can invest it today, and April 1st I get paid?
3 months.
That's pretty neat.
Now, but there's
Now
also,
then, can you take that money and do that again with another one?
Of course
Of
you can.
course.
But here comes one of the problems. Here comes a problem. Everybody wants to buy that 2 weeks to a month before it pays because they're going to collect 3 months worth of
So it
interest.
comes up in value.
So the share prices go up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And right after it's too late, the next day they come down dramatically.
To reflect the payment.
So that roller coaster is pretty severe sometimes. Now, if you just want to collect 10 or 12%, it's not important. But last month, December, a client of mine, from the day we bought it, all of a sudden it was up 30%.
Oh, wow.
It was just called luck. So I monitor these on a daily basis, and right now there's a bunch of them up 10 to 12, 14%, but I have one more month before it gets too late. So I like to watch the things ride up. Now, if it doesn't ride up where you're making more, substantially more than the 3 or 2.5%, you stay with the 3 or 2.5. But they are a little more volatile, but people have a chance to, instead of making 10 or 12 at the end of the year, maybe 20, maybe more. That particular fellow in 1 3-month spread made 30 because we hit that day. I mean, you couldn't have done it on purpose, Dan. By the time you put the order in, it'd have been up.
Right.
It just got luck. Now,
So this might be a good alternative. Let's say I have, well, like I talked about earlier, Joe, CD money, the bank drawing me 3%.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're going to get paid.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we all get paid for what we do. But I may make more with that than I do on several years worth of CD money, possibly.
several years. The key is this. Now here, like Dan said, I have to get paid. And the annuity contract we went through earlier, I don't get paid by you. The insurance company pays me. That's why they have penalties for you to get out during the first 7 years, usually, to cash the whole thing
Just
in.
to recoup all their
Well,
expenses.
they want to make some money. Let's face it. Nobody works for free. So if all your money goes to work for you the first day, they say, no, you need to stick around for a while so we can make some money too.
We got to hold on to it for a while.
Yeah. So usually it's 7 years, and the penalty goes away slowly over a 7-year period until after 7 years there's nothing. But of course, if you die during the 7 years, no penalty. That's it. And you can take out the earnings or have the guarantees, no penalty. But the other ones, you're going to pay me upfront commission. Under $100,000, I charge 2.5% one time. Over $100,000, 2. Over $1 million, you charge less.
We'll discuss it.
We will discuss it. The key thing that happens is every 3 months, you're going to get that 2.5 or 3%. And a lot of people, they need to know they have income. When you're sitting here retired, you're the guy of the day, trying to calculate how in the world am I going to live? What happens when I die? How's my wife going to live? Because
Sure.
1 Social Security instead of 2. So you have to, the whole concept is looking at each individual person and trying to put a program together that accomplishes their goal and yet has as little risk as humanly possible.
And that's a good word, as possible, because if you want no risk, then the
You're
investment,
in the bank.
yeah,
Go stay in a bank. In fact, I do this.
And even the bank, Joe, has risk because they only have FDIC, up to 250.
250.
So
If you have more than
if
that.
you got more than that,
But I don't see banks ever lose. Even when they bought up and they're reassumed, and the regulators come in and shut them down. Another bank takes them over the next day. I'm not concerned about the bank. That's safety. On the other hand, when I tell people you got to keep cash in the bank, call it case money, which means in case. How many kids do you have? I've got 6. Well, you better have at least 10, maybe more, because you got too
Just
many
in case.
kids. And what are you going to do? The buck stops with you, Dad. I hate to tell you. And because when you were a kid, same thing. Your dad was there when all else fell apart. Maybe, maybe not. But that's case money. After that, if you're worried about yourself, different story.
I always figured money in the bank loses money to inflation versus low interest every year.
Right. It
So
does.
it's like a slow death over a period of time. But I could say, well, at least it's mine.
And that's exactly right. Now, is also that your stomach, your heart, and your head, different parts of your body. If your stomach's upset because of where you are, I don't care how well you're doing, you don't want to be sick. It's like people paying off their house, Dan. When you start to look, hey, I'm earning 10% on my money and my mortgage is 5%, but I'm going to pay off the house anyway. Okay, fine with me. I think the object of having no debt is magnificent, and your stomach is going to feel good.
And you always need some place to live.
You always
So
need some. Well,
if
you
your
can
house
you
is
can move in with your
yours-
kids. The price is better.
Yeah, but if the house is yours, they move in with you.
Yeah, yeah. 340-1590, 340-1590.
But we talk about that where, let's say you have your home and you want to put your kids on it to
Right.
to avoid what you
Oh,
think is
boy.
some tax issue.
Oh, boy.
Believe me, there's some problems there.
Oh, man. You
And don't do it if you got more than one kid.
period.
Yeah.
Point
Even
is,
with one kid, if you put them on, you could lose. What if that kid gets sued?
Yeah.
You could
Point
lose
is-
part of that house.
if the child lives with you in a homestead and they're part of the household, different story. But if that kid lives in Maine and gets sued in Maine, you could lose your house.
We had a client not too long ago.
Big
remember?
time,
Yep.
big time.
Yep.
And we've had more than one. You remember Semper Fi used
Yep.
to call
Sure.
him?
Walt.
Lost his house. I mean, Walt was the nicest man in the whole world, do anything for anybody, and sure he did.
Yeah.
And it came back to bite him.
Things can happen. Things
Well,
can happen.
We've gone through this with wills and trusts and mistakes that are made constantly. And one of the things that we try to do as a group, we got pretty close to 200 years worth of combined experience in our group. And
Especially with you and Alan.
yeah, luckily you've got more experience than me because you look older than I am. But
I just
anyway.
feel older.
But the key thing that happens is, and Dan, you've said it, old age is just an
It's an
accumulation
accumulation
of mistakes.
of mistakes, bro.
And you make mistakes, but you learn from them. So what happens is that you can't get experience without time.
No. I had a nice lady call me this week. She had a question. She had some people who she graciously let come live with her, and now she's asked them to leave.
They don't want to leave.
No, you have to go through eviction
Well,
processes to
That's
get,
what I ended
yeah.
up telling her. I said,
That's
I
crazy.
said you
It's my
have to
house.
do an eviction process because if you don't, you can be responsible for
Yeah.
wrongful eviction.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, out of the goodness of my heart, I bring them in, and now I want them to go. And
That's
it's
one of
like,
those goofy rules. I'm sorry, it's your house.
I know, but you're using logic
but
again.
people,
Since when
who,
did logic?
who made that law in the first place?
A tenant,
a tenant, yes. a
an
tenant.
attorney working for
Yeah,
a tenant.
yeah.
Point is, legislation gets passed that is always not always in the best interest of the majority, but it's in the best interest of somebody. Otherwise, it wouldn't have got
Well,
in.
usually what I see is somebody has flagrantly abused the system, and now they overreact in Tallahassee, and they go, well, we'll just fix that. We'll just make it where it's impossible to do
Yeah,
that.
I always go, there's somebody saying, someone needs to do something about this.
Well, you know how the blue laws, you can't spit on the sidewalk? Well, it made really sense when everybody was chewing tobacco. You'd have all this globs of black
course.
stuff on the sidewalk.
Those days are over.
Anyway, spit in the grass.
We're out of time, guys.
340-1590, 340-1590. Are we out?
We are out.
Out.
Until next week. Adios.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance.
This is
Neither the opinions
WPSL
expressed nor
Port
the-
St. Lucie.